Just waiting. Hello and welcome to the Child Care Business Coach podcast. My name is Evelyn Knight. Being a leader is painful, isn't it? It's just so painful to be a leader in our society today. And sometimes, I don't know, honestly, is it our society today or is it just painful to be a leader? We strive to make everyone happy and to juggle everything, don't we? Most of us do. We want our staff to be happy. We want them to live a fulfilling life, but we have so much to juggle all the time. And so sometimes being a leader can be really painful, especially when the people that we fight for leave us. It is a very painful road to go down. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I am very grateful for your time and attention. And today we're talking about something that I'm actually just went through myself. It's losing staff members that you really care about and that you really just want the best for them. But it's hard, isn't it? It can be so daunting and it can actually feel like a betrayal. If you're watching live right now, let me know in the comments. Have you ever lost a staff member and it just felt like a betrayal? Logically, you know they're not betraying you. Logically, you know that, and you can try and rationalize to yourself, this isn't a betrayal. Them doing what is best for you is not, or for themselves is not a betrayal, but it feels like it at times, doesn't it? And in our society right now, turnover is huge. In the childcare industry, the average employee is only with their center for 6 months. I can't even imagine that. I am so incredibly thankful that I don't have to deal with that. But I did just lose some staff members that were tenured. And that is incredibly difficult. Normally when I lose staff, I'm good with it because they're going on to do what is best for their lives, right? And I tell myself all the time, they need to do what is best for them. But those emotional feelings still come up for me. And it still gets to be somewhat difficult to deal with when it's time to say goodbye. And we're not even talking about firing yet, but we will get to that. So how do you deal with those emotions? And how do you stand up, show up for your staff? There's some really key important things to note, especially when you are losing a very key staff member. Very, very, very important for you to be aware and to note these very important things. And I just realized I forgot to hook up my mic. So I'm so sorry that the sound quality isn't the best in this recording. I do apologize for that, but I realized I forgot. I just looked and like, oh, wow, I don't have my mics on. But oh, well, moving on. Sometimes we also try so hard to protect people and to protect our own feelings that we don't let go of people when we should. And a lot of times that leads to them leaving us, right? We either don't demote people when we should, or we hold on to them longer than we should. And we don't fire them when they should have been fired, or we don't demote them when they should have been demoted. And when this happens and then they leave us, it makes it that much harder and that much more emotional. Like, I fought for you. I gave you all these chances and all these opportunities. So the first thing I'm going to say is when you start getting those personal emotional feelings, catch them right in and really start questioning your thought process. Ask yourself, where is this emotion coming from? They made a professional decision that is best for their personal life. Where is this coming from? And look at where is the root of this. It's okay to be sad and upset, but it's not okay to allow that to make you bitter and angry. It's not okay for it to dictate any part of your leadership. It is not okay, right? So when something like this happens to me, I'm very stoic at work. I'm there for my staff. I have to show up confident and I have to show the rest of the staff we're fine. We're fine, right? Because we are. Honestly, you guys, every single person on your staff is replaceable. I know that's hard to hear, and especially if you're a director or an employee, but it's the truth. There is nobody so integral in any business that the business can't survive without them. I tell my staff, my center could survive without me. It doesn't, with the right person coming in, it doesn't need me. Even my companies that I own, I could sell them and they'll be fine as long as I choose the right person to sell them to, right? So there is nobody on your staff that is so important that it cannot survive. Really what it is how are you approaching their leaving? Are you making the rest of your staff confident that it's going to be fine? Are you confident in yourself? Do you have an action plan? Have you created an action plan? It takes intentionality, no matter when a staff. So first I want to go over some steps that you can take to make sure that things are okay. And then I want to go over firing staff. And when we keep them way too long or we don't demote them, and this is my biggest weakness right here, is I want to just save people. So I don't always fire when I should, and I don't always demote when I should. And I've learned so many lessons in my life. And I will talk about how do you overcome that, right? Like, how do you get to a point where you stop keeping people on? And I'm writing myself a note really quick so I don't forget to tell you guys. When you stop keeping people on when they should have gone. So first, let's talk about just when people leave you, how do you go and protect your staff, your current staff? The first and foremost thing I'm going to say is you have to call it out. You have to talk about it. Otherwise, the gossip mill is going to get going and things are going to get stirred. Do not be afraid to call it out. You have to be confident about it too. And I'm saying, what I want to say on this one is I don't want your confidence to be fake. I want it to be real. You're going to be fine. I know sometimes it feels like you're not, but you will. There's nobody, even you, that the company needs so much, that your center needs so much that it's going to fall apart, right? I know as leaders, we like to tell ourselves it can't survive without us. I know we like to say that to ourselves, like, oh, they just don't know. But really, that's not true. That's not true. If the right leader comes in, it'll be fine. It will be fine. You do not have to be there. And I can tell you, I used to be that leader who thought there is no way I can be away from my center. But then when my husband got really sick and passed away, I had to step away. And before that, I got my center ready. I got it ready for me not to be there. But there was a time where I was working 50 hours a week because I thought that's what my center needed. And it wasn't true. I just wasn't properly training my staff. I wasn't properly letting them know my expectations. And I wasn't properly keeping scorecards on how they're performing. I would just get mad at them like, oh, why aren't they doing this? And why aren't they doing that? And this is messed up and that's messed up. And I didn't realize it was me as a leader that was causing all my problems. It wasn't my staff. And my center can survive just fine without me. It's fine. It sometimes needs you to go in and tweak it and realign it, but you don't have to be there from open to close. So I think that's the first thing, is knowing you're going to be okay, right? It might be bumpy down the road, but you're going to be fine. So go to your staff with confidence and let them know, I know it's really sad that we've lost these people, but we're going to be okay. The other thing I want you to really think about is, in life, everything is a story, right? And people create stories in their mind based on what's going on around them. So what I want you to think about is, if a staff member leaves and you don't address it, your staff is creating a story about why that person left, about how they left, about what's going to happen, right? The way I like to see it is, I think of a book with pages ripped out, okay? And let's say there's a book and you've got like this incident and then a couple pages are ripped out and then you got another and then a couple pages. What happens? You're going to make up stories in between to fill the blanks for the missing pages, right? Well, that's exactly what your staff is doing if you are not communicating with them. They are filling the gaps. And that can be very dangerous because their speculation suddenly becomes fact, right? Now it's being gossiped about as if it is fact. This is the truth. This is what happened. Oh my gosh, the sky is falling. That's what happens. So, in order to take charge of that, you need to control the narrative and don't leave pages out of the story. Now, that being said, you also have to be very careful because you also don't want a lawsuit on your hands. So, you have to be very careful with the information you do give out. And you have to be very careful not to disparage anybody in a negative way, right? But you have to be able to tell your employees enough without giving up too much information so that they aren't making up stories and gossiping. You also have to give them enough information so that they feel confident and secure and they all don't want to suddenly leave you, right? So being transparent is very important. Just be very careful not to say disparaging things. Like, you know what happens out there, right? You can have a staff member who was awful, but everybody loved them. I mean, they could have just not been doing the best job at their job, right? They could have been a great person and even appeared to be a great employee because they were there every single day. They showed up on time. They showed a lot of love to the staff. I mean, they got along with everybody, but their job duties weren't being met, right? Or they were making a lot of mistakes, or they were cutting corners and not following policies and procedures, right? So to the staff, this person looks like a phenomenal staff member, but behind the scenes, they're actually a hot mess. Well, you can't go tell your staff that. You can't just be like, yeah, they screwed everything up, right? We can't. But you can be confident and just know, hey, that's okay. We are going to move forward. We are going to, and basically, you can't say, yeah, this person was a train wreck. And I will tell you guys from experience, things will reveal themselves with time. They will. The staff will see it with time, and you're not going to have to say a word. So don't worry about it. I know in the beginning, it is very worrisome. It is very worrisome in the beginning. But as time goes on, the truth starts to really come out. And as the truth comes out, your staff will see the reality of what was really happening. You won't have to say anything. Things will just start flowing better. Environment will be more calm. I talk a lot about the cancers in your center, right? And I always encourage my clients, cut the cancer as fast as you can, cut the cancer. Sometimes the cancer is hard to see and recognize. And the staff might think that these are the most amazing people because these are the people going and talking to everybody and getting them on their side, right? And so when they're gone, everybody might freak out a little bit. They might even say things like, oh my gosh, she was right. Oh my gosh, she was right. They were going to let her go because she's so honest with us, right? When it really wasn't honesty, the person just gossiped a lot. But they were very friendly, and so everybody loved them, and everyone thought that they were like a friend, right? So people often misinterpret a person because they're nice to them. So as time goes by, their actions start revealing themselves. And when you cut that cancer out, it is really scary. It really is. But you're going to notice your entire atmosphere changes. Everything becomes more calm, and there's a lot less conflict when the cancer leaves your program. So really, just don't overdo it. Don't go and start talking crap. Let the actions speak for themselves because things will flow nicely. So I'm reading my notes and I have no idea what I said. I wrote in my notes. It's just hilarious. The one thing about doing these live, right? I record my podcast live and sometimes I'm like, what was that? I can't pause when I'm recording live. But anyway, let's keep going. Yeah, I have no idea. Oh, I remember now. So basically, when it's time to fire somebody, we're going to move into the firing part of this. I have a whole podcast episode on the Child Care Business Coach podcast that's called When It's Time to Say Goodbye. I highly recommend it because I basically go through my personal experience when I haven't fired people when I should have, and then it ended ugly. And one thing I want to tell you, I work with hundreds of leaders around the world. literally hundreds, and I might be getting into the thousands at this point. And the one thing I have to say that I really want you to hear is that nobody I've worked with has ever regretted firing somebody. No one I've worked with has ever regretted firing somebody, but they have regretted not firing them soon enough. Think about that. The regret is in not taking action soon enough. It's never in firing them. I've never had someone saying, "Oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have fired them." I have had people say, "I don't know why I kept them so long. This was a disaster." So you should be quick to fire and slow to hire, right? Quick to fire, slow to hire. So just thinking about that, like, what is it, the kind of excuses? When you start finding yourself making excuses for a person, stop and ask yourself, why am I holding on to this person, right? Like, maybe it's my fault, their full potential. Like, I'm just not seeing their full potential. Maybe I just need to do some different types of training with them. These are all excuses I've told myself. Like, I think that just, I got to give them more time. Those are all excuses I've given myself when I've held on to people or I've allowed them to stay in a position for too long where they should not have been. And I also want to say, by doing that, I am doing that person a huge disservice because I am hoping that they strive for something, and I'm pushing them basically to strive for something that they are not capable of doing, right? And that is a betrayal. Now, I know that it feels like a betrayal when you fire somebody, but really, when you're putting them in a position that they cannot handle, is that maybe more of a bigger betrayal? Something I've really had to soul search and ask myself in my career is keeping someone where they don't belong. Maybe that's a bigger betrayal than forcing them or encouraging them to do something they're not really truly capable of. So look at those excuses and ask yourself why. Um, Relieve the pain, right? Just let it go. Let it go sometimes. And the one big thing that I found when I was really struggling with this is I don't have a scorecard. That was it. I didn't have a scorecard. Think of like a report card, right? Where people have to meet metrics. Your teachers, there are certain goals they have to meet. If your pre-K classroom isn't hitting the standards that you have created, then maybe you need a different pre-K teacher. If you're an owner and your director has low enrollment all the time, a lot of turnover, all these things, maybe it's them. But you can make these black and white metrics, right? All of this can be a black and white metrics so that when you do go to fire somebody, it isn't about, well, your performance is poor. It's black and white, right? Employees files in childcare. We have to have wonderful child files and employee files. Do your own audits. Or when your state does an audit, that's part of the report card. Your state audit is like your report card for your center, right? Well, that should be your director's report card too. If the files are bad, if you're getting a lot of different things, well, then your director's failing at their job. You should have near perfect. I know we can't, I mean, my center did perfect for years. We had like, okay, you're good, you're good, you're good. And every now and then laws change that you don't know about. It just, there's so much to keep up with that sometimes I get that you're not going to always have perfect state visits. I get that I do. But there should be some things that are completely black and white that should always be perfect, right? Like your files. There's no excuse for not having perfect files. There's no excuse for not having hours met. Things like that. There's no excuse for like any of the safety and security issues, health safety standards that are for the children. So that's where you can start with creating your own report cards for your management team. And for your teachers, look at what do you want a child to have before they graduate? And also, are they treating them with kindness? I have a whole bunch of these that I rate my teachers and my staff on myself. But so what happens is when you need to let an employee go, they actually let themselves go. You are not firing your employee. They're firing themselves, right? So I want you to really hear that right now. You do not fire anybody. They fire themselves because they are not meeting the standards. They are not living up to your employment requirements. Now, however, I want to say, just make sure your employment requirements are super, super clear. I have to say 80% of the clients that I take on do not have clear expectations. They do not have a scorecard and they do not have clear policies, right? But when you have all of these things in place, it's black and white. It takes the decision out of your hands as a leader. When these things are clear cut, boxes they have to check. It's literally like giving a child a report card in school, right? If they're getting F's, they're gone. It's not your choice anymore. You let them go. But before that, I just want to stress it is your job, first and foremost, to make sure they have the information and they're properly trained. And if they are, and you can confidently say that they are, and they still aren't performing and they're failing at the scorecard you've created for them, then there is no choice. You don't have a choice. The employee fired themselves, right? Makes it so much easier. And even that can feel like a betrayal. So take care of your mental health. One of the things I do is I am pretty stoic at work. And some days I go home and I just let myself cry. And there was a period where like, I knew I needed to cry, but I couldn't cry. I just couldn't, but I could feel it. And I was just like, oh, this is going to come at the wrong time because, you got to be careful when it happens, right? You really do. And so I ended up just going on a 20-mile bike ride one day. It's something I love to do, and just going out to clear my head, to think, to get away. I went for years with just all the noise in society, right? And I want you guys to really think about this. All the noise in society. There's a television always playing. There's a podcast, YouTube, music, whatever. How often do you get to just be silent and hear your own thoughts? I eliminated television from my life a few years ago. It's been like 3 or 4 years at this point, where sometimes when I'm sick, I will Netflix binge. So I do watch some TV. I'm not going to say it's completely out of my life, but I don't watch it every day. And maybe once every quarter, I watch TV. And so it really has empowered me, though, to have silence in my life, to have moments where I can hear my own thoughts. There was a moment in my life where I realized that I was never quiet, like never had quiet. There was always somebody else's thoughts coming into my head, whether it's through music, even music, you guys, the lyrics in music is other thoughts coming into your head. And so dealing with things like firing an employee quitting, performance, whatever, parents, it's really hard because you never give your brain time to process. So as a mental health tip, it is okay to be sad. Let it out. Don't stuff it down because it will. That's like shaking a soda can. It's going to explode. Give yourself time to process. Give yourself some quiet time. If you need to go for a walk, if maybe you're just doing the dishes, don't have background noise on. No background noise, right? Let your brain think. At first, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable because you have an addiction. You have an addiction to all the noise. But I'm telling you, if you push through, you will be so much better off for it. So thank you so much for joining me. This episode of the podcast was brought to you by Childcare Business Professionals Visionary Circle. And the Visionary Circle is having an event this November 13th, 14th, and 15th. So I do have to say, this event is not for everybody. It may not be for you, and that is okay. This event is only for people who understand and know that they're meant for more, who maybe you're a small business owner right now, but you just know there's something different. Maybe your friends and your family are always like, why can't you be satisfied with what you have? Why do you always have to have something new, right? And you just feel like there's something wrong with you sometimes because you always want more and more and more. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing. You're probably just a visionary entrepreneur. And that's what the Visionary Circle event is all about. It's for those of us visionaries who have tried to fit in other people's boxes and we just don't fit. We've made ourselves small because the people around us don't understand us. And I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. I was that person once upon a time. I was the person who felt like I was small, well, I felt like I was too big. I was too much. That's what it was. I always felt like I was too much. And I realized one day, I'm not too much. People around me are just small and they don't understand me. So I found people who are like me. And I don't have to squeeze myself into some small box and make myself something I'm not. And I realized there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just bigger than a lot of the people around me. And there's a lot of people like you. If that resonated with you, there are a lot of people like you because I found my people. So the Visionary Circle event is all for childcare business professionals who feel that way, who know that you are meant for more, but the people in your life make you feel like you got to squeeze into this little box. And you want to start more companies, you want to start more projects, you want to build wealth, but people make you feel guilty because you do want more. So I'm here to tell you, you're okay. And there are people like you out there. So join us. If you have any questions about this event, please message me. I would be more than happy to answer your questions, or send me an email at admin@childcarebusinessprofessionals.com right here. And I would be happy to answer your questions about the Visionary Circle event. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And I see a couple of you on here live watching that are going to be at the Visionary Circle event in Napa. And by the way, you guys, it's in Napa. Come on. Napa in November is going to be gorgeous. So you don't want to miss the event. And for those of you who will be there, I cannot wait to see you guys. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.